Hi, welcome to my second episode of Give Yourself Grace Overcoming Condemnation. So, in my first episode, I shared about my heart for helping women to overcome shame and condemnation, and my reasons for that being tied to my religious experience. This time, I'm going to dive more into the mom shame and also share not only some difficult experiences around religious shame, but some positive experiences with people who hold beliefs that are religious, Christian religion beliefs to be exact. So I'm going to share with you from a Substack post that I wrote recently, and then I'll get into those stories. Mom shame is so common we take it for granted as part of the norm for being a parent. Case in point, I gave a speech to a group of 8 entrepreneurial women at a business meeting recently. As part of my speech, I asked the ladies to be brave and answer a few questions candidly with a show of hands. The line of questioning went like this: Who here is a mom? Who here has ever failed? Who here has ever felt they failed as a mom? Who here has ever felt ashamed for failing as a mom? Who here has ever felt unforgivable for failing as a mom? Up until that last question, all of the women raised their hands. My hand was the solo one representing unforgivable, and I no longer feel this way, but that is a post for another time. So here you have a group of women who, in many cases, represent the more confident of the population, and yet mom shame was felt by all of them. These are women who are used to fighting for the life they want, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, or putting on their big girl panties, so to speak. So, how is it that this group of confident, powerful women can all unequivocally feel mom shame? Before I go any further, let's define mom shame. The internet definition I found was the act of judging other mothers for their decisions. Now, I'm going to break that definition down right away because I noticed something. First off, it says other mothers, which implies that it's other women who are moms that are doing the shaming. This tracks. Having been on both sides of the coins, I can speak for that truth. The other thing that stands out is that it doesn't mention an important point, a very important point. We are our own worst critics. Talk to any woman, she'll quickly tell you that the self talk she has in her head is pretty awful. There are a few that have overcome that, but it's not the common situation. Again, myself included, no shame. I'm being honest up front here. It's something I'm overcoming. So, not only do we criticize our parenting and hold it to unreasonable standards, but we allow other people's opinions, mainly women, or beliefs handed down by society, religion being one of those aspects, and that typically being controlled by men, to hold us in this pattern of shame. I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your permission." So we are allowing these things. And yes, that stings a little bit to recognize that responsibility. But before you dive back into a shame spiral, like I know I have a tendency to do, consider this. Where did you learn to shame yourself like that? What is the source of this lack of confidence? I recently ran across a quote from Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she said, "I cannot imagine where women get the idea that we need to be perfect. Just kidding. We get it from every message ever given by society." Now, here's where it's tempting to say, well, that's right. I can't help it that it's that I have unreasonable standards for myself. It's not my fault, it's society's fault. Well, you can hold on to that thought if you'd like, but I promise it doesn't make you feel any better. Elizabeth goes on to say it's our responsibility as women to unlearn this. Why should you, you ask? I didn't create the problem. Why should I fix it? Because otherwise you become part of the problem. How so, you say? Because not only are you standing by idly while society continues to dump crap on women, yourself included, but also you will continue to dole out more of the same either to yourself or to others because hurt people. And we're all connected, whether you see that from a spiritual point of view or even just a physical point of view, like the example of 6 degrees of separation. That's the word I want. Like the Kevin Bacon example they talk about, how many steps to Kevin Bacon. And we've all experienced that. Like we find out we're connected to some famous person somehow, or some situation that comes into being that you're like, wow, how did that happen? Another good example is how rumors fly around. You can tell one woman and 20 more will know it by the next 10 minutes, probably. So, how do we end this cycle? Well, first of all, you get real honest about where it's coming from. Once you accept that you've allowed this, then you stop feeding it to yourself. If you have trouble finding the root thoughts or reframing them, then reach out for help. Counselors and coaches like myself are great at helping people dig in. But the work is not done yet because if you've allowed yourself to hold that shame without expressing it, even with a quick acknowledgement of, I feel ashamed, then it's wreaking havoc on your system. And this ties in with my other my other podcast called Menopause Madness. So it's important to recognize that emotions are a form of chemical energy. And if they're not allowed to move through your system, they become toxic. Think of hormones as emotional chemical messengers. So it's important to detox those things. And I get more into that in my Substack post and on my other social media offerings. But rather than diving into that, I will share a couple of stories as promised. So, first of all, I want to say that I have had some very dear Christian friends in my lifetime, people that really looked after me, people who went out of their way to show care and love to me. And I'm grateful for those people, all of them. And there have certainly been times in my life where I haven't made that clear or that I have done the opposite. um, but that ties back to a couple of things. One, hurt people hurt people. Alexa, cancel. Alexa, cancel. So, a great example of where this was true in my life when Grace got sick with brain cancer. That's my 11-year-old daughter. I was still Christian at that time, and I had a group of friends rally around and create a Facebook page to help support our family during that time. And we needed every kind of support you can imagine. One of the things that came from that page, besides a great deal of other types of support, was people praying on six different continents. So the only one not covered was Antarctica. And what was miraculous about that situation was not a single one of them cared what the other one's denomination was. No questions were asked. I was the one that initiated that conversation because I was extremely curious. And I really wanted to drive home the point that it doesn't matter what your denomination is. It doesn't. It doesn't change anything about love. So I was astounded and humbled and blessed by those people and their decisions to take time out of their day to show and express love to my family at a very difficult time. However, what can happen with these toxic shame situations where women are constantly told that they're not good enough, that God doesn't love them, that no matter how hard they try or how much they do, they will never meet, be good enough. They'll never reach a point of satisfaction with God. Even to the point that some religions will say, even after you die, there's still work to be done. So one of those stories I'll share briefly without giving too much detail so as not to embarrass this other person, whom I still love. Um, Good friend of mine. We had been friends through thick and thin for many years. And um, she came to me and shared that even though she knew I wasn't Christian, um, and I knew that she still was, we remained friends. But she came to me and said she was uncomfortable with some of her behaviors in our interactions together. Um, I like to I like to enjoy some dirty jokes. I'm not gonna be ashamed of that. She was uncomfortable with that, but she had been playing along, so to speak. Okay, I get it. It's not lining up with your belief system. I get it. Um, so she shared that we could no longer be best friends because she was uncomfortable with those behaviors and um, didn't think that we could really line up on things anymore. Okay, that was hard to hear. Um, Somehow during the course of the conversation, it came up that she was curious how it was that I had walked away from my Christian beliefs. Even though she knew some of the backstory, she never heard about my beliefs. We chose not to discuss it, other than she knew that I had walked away from Christianity. And she questioned me by asking why I would turn on Jesus because he didn't kill my daughter. I resisted the urge to lash out, which was definitely a temptation. What good does that do? Me hurting her back. That doesn't help anything. So I asked her if she wanted to know and she said yes. Why did, she wanted to understand my beliefs. So I did my best to explain them and she got very upset. And to summarize the tail end of this story, it became apparent to me that our friendship together would be very strained and that I would be struggling with feeling constantly inundated with shame. And I recognized that it was time for me to walk away. And that was challenging. This was a person for us both, this was a person that had heard all of my secrets and let me cry on her shoulder and vice versa many times. Um and I choose to take responsibility, just like Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, for the feelings I was having in that situation. But part of my choice included not continuing to expose myself to a person whose belief systems were so much tying her to shame that she was going to continue to project that into my life. And that was something I was unwilling to tolerate. Um, so when you're detoxing from mom shame, it may mean walking away from some people or some circumstances or a belief system. Um, or it may just mean standing up for yourself. If you feel strong enough to continue to stay in that situation and the other person's willing to abide by your new boundaries, then by all means, relationship is better than being right. Um, but you also have to know that you have to choose to love yourself first. So my encouragement to you all is give yourself grace, let go of condemnation. I could talk at more length about how I came to understand that we are all connected, if that's a desire of yours, or if you just would like some help detoxing from the portions of your belief system that are not serving you. I would be glad to help with that as well, with no agenda other than to help you feel more compassion towards yourself, to show more compassion towards yourself. Because I truly believe, so I guess there's a little bit of a selfish motive in here. I truly believe that we're all connected, and what hurts one of us hurts all of us. So give yourself grace.